Hey, how's it going, everybody? Harrison George here with the Harrison George team, and today I'm just going to kind of chat with you a little bit about some stuff that I've been thinking about. Recently, I've been talking with a couple people who have been in these really unique predicaments in regards to, does it make sense to get out of a lower 30-year mortgage and get into something that is a little more different, like this all-in-one loan? And that kind of got me thinking about, well, why would people even really want to get out of their 30-year mortgage other than obviously to pay less in interest, which in reality, if you have a 2.5% 30-year mortgage, and again, this isn't perfect math, but approximately you're going to spend about half of what you borrowed in interest. So if you had a $500,000 mortgage and you're at a 2.5% interest rate, that means you're going to have about $250,000 in total interest, which obviously is a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, it is certainly able to be much less money than where rates are at today, spending about 100 to 150% of what you borrow in interest. So that same $500,000 mortgage is now going to be about $750,000. And realistically, again, over 30 years, $250,000 isn't a great sum of money, but if there's a way to keep more of that money in your pocket, that's kind of just what I've been thinking about. And realistically, again, over 30 years, $250,000 isn't a great sum of money, but if there's a way to keep more of that money in your pocket, that's kind of just what I've been thinking about. Everybody has a unique situation. It's not just as simple as, I have this house that has this amount of equity and I have all of these debts over here, and it's within the amount of equity that I have that the lending industry is going to let you borrow. You're not going to be able to pull out 100% cash out. I apologize. It probably doesn't even really make sense to go up to 100% cash out. But if in many instances you're looking at 80% cash out on your home, it allows for individuals to pull that money out, pay this debt off over here, and hopefully their total monthly obligation on this new mortgage payment is less in a substantial way than the debt associated with what they pulled out, plus their old mortgage payment was. There's math behind it, like how far are you even into the mortgage? Does it make sense to even pull cash out if you're 15 years into the mortgage when you've already spent the lion's share of your total amount of interest? And if instead of applying extra principal over here, maybe take that money and start paying off debt over here? I think that everyone looks at the mortgage world, or even just, oh, I need to pay off debt, I want to pay my home off faster, as kind of a, you fit in this bucket, you want to pay off debt, great, you're over here and everybody else is over here. And I think that there are an infinite amount of buckets because everyone's scenario is just so incredibly different. And I think that that's where figuring out either whomever you've worked with in the past, if they're somebody that you can confide in and walk through and have them provide at least some guidance. They're not going to say, hey, you need to do this and this and this. It's going to be, here's a list of options. At least they should be doing this. Here's a list of options of how you can get to where you are. It's not going to be the easiest conversation. And I'll be honest with you, I've had to have a lot of really difficult conversations. It's, hey, you need to stop spending money on this. Hey, you need to stop going out. Hey, you need to stop wasting your money doing these other things, paying for 10 different streaming platforms, when in reality, you may not even use 10 different streaming platforms. I've certainly had some really difficult conversations with some individuals, and in reality, it's not always the easiest to have those conversations, but it is some of the most fruitful conversations. Hey, look, you guys appear to be going out 4 times a week. You DoorDash the other 3 times a week. Perhaps what we can do is build a game plan so that, yes, you may need to do a little extra work. Yes, I know some people don't have the ability to sit down and cook food. I understand that. There's ways to get around it. And all I'm trying to say is that it's a hard first step, but once you start taking that first step and going towards the path of, great, I've eliminated this credit card. Let's not get rid of it. Let's not close it because that can ruin your credit. But let's just put it over here and let's use it for just 1 tank of gas a month. Perfect. Now let's work on whatever we were saving on this credit card and spending on this credit card. Let's start applying it to this credit card or towards this debt. Whatever the ratio of balance to payment is. That's kind of how I look at the equation. In some instances, it's easy to get rid of a $100 debt, but that payment on it could only be $10 or $20. In some instances, it's not as difficult to get rid of a $500 or $1,000 debt, but if that payment is $200, in my mind, without knowing the conditions of that perhaps credit card, I'm spending a heck of a lot more money per dollar on this credit card than I am on this credit card. So how can we work on getting rid of the debt that's costing me the most while also picking some of the lower ended debt? There's just a lot of different ways to go about looking at this. And sometimes it really is taking a step backwards so that you can take a step forward. There are so many times when I've seen people say, I have no money left over at the end of every month. I pay everything towards my mortgage payment. I pay everything towards my bills. I don't want to pull money out of my mortgage because I have a 2.5% interest rate. And they're locking themselves into this 2.5% interest rate while the debt over here is causing problems in their life, late payments, potentially they're coming after their vehicles, and at some point you miss a couple mortgage payments and now you're in trouble in a different way. And all I'm trying to say is let's look at a broader picture. Yeah, it's going to stink to get rid of your 2.5% mortgage, but what sounds a lot worse to me is having somebody take away your home. And there are situations that I've heard of individuals that will not get out of their mortgage because they have such a low interest rate, but they have debt over here that's a fraction of the balance of their mortgage and 2 to 3 times the payment of their mortgage. So I'm just trying to get across that it may not make sense to get out of your 2.5% mortgage, but in some instances it may make sense. Now, if you are just spending a couple extra bucks here and there and you have a 2.5% mortgage, totally fine. Stay in that. This isn't a video about me saying get out of your 2.5% mortgage. This is a video about saying where are you in your financial journey, and if the worst came to worst situation came up, are you prepared to take that step back and get rid of something that's amazing, that's never going to happen again, most likely never going to happen again, pay off some debt and move on, because it's possible that if you pulled money out of your home at a low interest rate, paid off debt, in some instances, the amount of payments you had collectively is so much greater than the single payment that you would have in that 30-year mortgage, that if you applied the extra balance that you're saving every month as principal, again, in this instance, nothing would be changing other than the fact that you're now applying this towards principal in your home. It's possible that your effective interest rate would be equal to what your interest expense would have been in a 2.5% mortgage without any of the other debt. And there's ways that we can run that math. And maybe I can run that math in another video if that's something you guys are interested in. There are so many different factors that come to play in every person's specific scenario that it's not a one-stop shop. Don't get rid of your interest rate. You need to refinance. No. Neither are going to be correct until you talk with somebody and they can say, hey, I see where you're at. I see that it makes sense for you to do this. It does not make sense for you to do this. Let's find another solution. Let's find another way of having you do this. No, you don't need to sell your home. This is how you can do it. It's going to be a little difficult, but you don't need to change your school district, your state, your job, or whatever. It's really, actually, I would say a little more complicated than what some people think it is, but nowhere near as complicated as rocket science or anything. It's really just removing emotion and looking at the numbers. And the numbers at the end of the day are going to tell you the truth. They're not going to say, hey, you should really go down this path, and then, aha, we tricked you over here. If all the information that you know about yourself is able to be put into some simple calculators that you can hop on a phone with any loan officer that should be able to assist you, they can walk you through and say, this is a good idea, this isn't a good idea. The trap that you may run into is perhaps those people that are, hey, it's been slow for the last couple of years. It is a good idea when it's not a good idea. I tell people that work with me all the time, hey, I would recommend that you go and get a feel and communicate with somebody else, because I know how my team and I operate. I know that I'm not going to just try and make the decision that best fits and suits me. I'm trying to figure out what makes sense for this person, not just in this scenario, but from where they are to where they want to be. And that's kind of really just what I wanted to chat with you guys about today. I didn't really have any major point, just kind of been thinking about some stuff as I've been talking with some people and hearing some really amazing stories and some really not so amazing stories. And I just figured that, you know, if there's a way that I can help somebody, then I feel like I'm doing a good job. So thank you guys, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.